I didn't stop because I had answers. I stopped because continuing without listening no longer made sense. For a long time, I believed movement was enough. As long as I was doing something, as long as I was staying busy, as long as life kept moving forward, I assumed I was fine. Stopping felt unnecessary, even risky. Stopping created space, and space has a way of revealing things you've been avoiding. So I avoided it. I told myself I would slow down later, when things were clearer, when there was less to manage, when life felt more stable. Later never arrived. Life didn't suddenly create room for reflection. It just kept asking me to keep up. And I did. Until one day, movement stopped feeling productive and started feeling like noise. Not loud noise, quiet noise. The kind that fills every moment so you don't have to hear anything underneath. I realized I had been filling my days to avoid listening to myself. Not intentionally, not consciously, just habitually. Listening sounded vague, almost impractical. What was I supposed to hear? What was I even listening for? I didn't know, and that uncertainty made stopping uncomfortable, so I stayed in motion. But something had changed. The routines that once felt grounding now felt automatic. The progress I once took pride in felt disconnected from intention. I wasn't exhausted from effort, I was exhausted from repetition. And repetition without reflection slowly erodes meaning. Stopping didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic pause, no decision to step away from everything. It started with small moments. Moments where I noticed the urge to immediately distract myself. Moments where silence felt unfamiliar. I noticed how quickly I reached for something to do the moment there was nothing demanding my attention. Checking, planning, thinking ahead, anything to avoid stillness. Stillness felt unproductive. It didn't fit the version of myself I had learned to value. I had built an identity around being dependable, around continuing, around not stopping. Stopping felt like losing momentum. But momentum toward what? That question had been waiting quietly. Listening didn't mean sitting in silence for hours. It meant paying attention to what surfaced when I wasn't rushing past myself. At first, nothing profound appeared. No clarity, no sudden insight, just discomfort, a sense of restlessness, a feeling of unfamiliarity. I realized I had trained myself to move faster than my thoughts. Slowing down felt awkward because I wasn't used to being present without an agenda. Listening required patience, and patience felt inefficient. I had spent years solving problems, meeting expectations, handling responsibilities. Listening offered no immediate outcome. There was nothing to fix, nothing to complete, just observation. That felt strangely difficult. I began to notice how often my decisions were driven by avoidance rather than intention. How often I said yes simply because saying no required explanation. How often I continued paths because they were already familiar. Listening revealed patterns I hadn't named before. Not mistakes, patterns. I noticed the quiet tension I carried when I committed to things that no longer felt aligned. The subtle relief I felt when plans were canceled. The absence of excitement when I talked about parts of my life that were supposed to matter. These weren't dramatic signals, they were easy to ignore. That's why listening mattered, not because the answers were loud, but because they were subtle. Listening wasn't about finding direction. It was about noticing resistance, about paying attention to where energy faded instead of forcing it to stay. I realized I had been measuring my life by how well it functioned, not by how honestly it felt lived. Functioning is easy to justify. It has structure. It has reasons. Listening has none of that. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't present clear steps. It simply asks you to notice. I noticed how often I confused comfort with contentment, how often I assumed that because something worked, it deserved my continued loyalty. Listening challenged that assumption. It didn't demand change. It didn't suggest action. It simply questioned continuation. That was enough to feel unsettling. I had always believed that stopping meant giving up, that pausing meant falling behind, but listening reframed stopping. Stopping wasn't retreat. It was attention. It wasn't quitting. It was acknowledging. I didn't suddenly understand what I wanted. Listening didn't provide a roadmap. What it did was remove the noise that had kept me from noticing what wasn't working anymore. I became aware of how long I had been carrying expectations that no longer belonged to me. Expectations I had inherited, accepted, never questioned. Listening didn't remove responsibility. It clarified it. It reminded me that responsibility without reflection becomes obligation. An obligation, over time, becomes resentment. I wasn't resentful toward anyone else. I was resentful toward myself for not paying attention sooner. But even that realization arrived quietly. There was no guilt, no urgency, just awareness. Listening slowed my pace without stopping my life. I still showed up. I still handled what needed handling. But I stopped filling every moment. I allowed pauses to exist without immediately justifying them. In those pauses, I noticed something important. The part of me I had been avoiding wasn't demanding radical change. It wasn't asking for escape. It was asking for honesty. Honesty about what I no longer wanted to carry. Honesty about what I had outgrown. Honesty about the difference between staying committed and staying out of habit. Listening didn't tell me what to do next. It simply made it impossible to keep pretending I didn't hear anything. That changed the way I moved forward, not dramatically, not suddenly, but deliberately. I became more selective, more aware. I started noticing when movement was driven by fear and when it was driven by choice. I didn't stop going forward. I just stopped doing it automatically. Listening didn't solve my life. It didn't provide answers. What it gave me was orientation, a sense of internal alignment that had been missing beneath all the activity. I understood then that clarity doesn't always come from action. Sometimes it comes from restraint, from allowing yourself to hear what's been waiting beneath the noise. I didn't reach a conclusion. I didn't arrive at a destination, but I stopped running past myself, and that was enough for now.